for co-sponsoring this event. I'd also like to thank Pam Tillis and the Office of Public Programs for her support. And finally, a thank you to Democracy Now! And the New School Audiovisual Department for recording this lecture. And of course, thank you to Rachel and Nick for assisting in their setup of the facilities here. The New School is honored to host writer and journalist Chris Hedges, who comes to our school at an interesting time in which both this very academic institution and the liberal intelligentsia, of which it presumably counts itself a part, grapples with its powerless identity that continues to accept and support our growing war economy. Each week, my colleagues and I look forward to reading Mr. Hedges' lecture, column on truthdig.com. This week's column, Why Liberals Are Useless, hits right at the core of this identity crisis. Mr. Hedges writes, liberals are a useless lot. They're defeated and self-absorbed. Their cynicism is a cloak for their cowardice and impotence. They use inaction and empty moral posturing, not to affect change, but to engage in an orgy of self-adulation and self-pity. The gravest danger we face as a nation is not from the far right, but from a bankrupt liberal class that has lost the will to fight and the moral courage to stand up for what it espouses. Hedges unapologetically asks, at what point do we stop being dormant? At what point do we fight back? We may lose if we step outside of the mainstream, but at least we salvage our self-esteem and integrity. Mr. Hedges' words have been published in The Nation, Mother Jones, Harper's, and the New York Times, where his correspondence from the Middle East won him the Pulitzer Prize in 2002 for explanatory journalism and an Amnesty International Global Award for human rights journalism. But Mr. Hedges' career at the New York Times would be short-lived. When in 2003, Hedges delivered a commencement address in Illinois, where he criticized the U.S. invasion of Iraq. Mr. Hedges argued, "We are embarking on an occupation that, if history is any guide, will be as damaging to our souls as it will be to our prestige, power, and security." Members of the audience booed and jeered him. Although some applauded, Hedges' microphone was cut twice, and two young men even rushed the stage to prevent him from speaking. Subsequently, the New York Times criticized his statements, and the editors demanded Hedges cease speaking about the Iraq War. Hedges, refusing to accept such restrictions, left the New York Times to become a senior fellow at the Nation Institute, where he now writes and teaches at Princeton. Hedges' books, I Don't Believe in Atheist, American Fascist, The Christian Right and the War on America, Losing Moses on the Freeway, War is a Force That Gives Us Meaning, and now Empire of Illusion, challenge and provoke. In War is a Force That Gives Us Meaning, Hedges describes war as the most potent narcotic invented by humankind. Subsequently, as war, poverty, and conflict escalate, as we learn in Empire of Illusion, an increasingly disjointed and intoxicated population will seek comfort in celebrity culture, trivial gossip, pseudo-events, and illusion. Thus, it seems that both war and the illusions we exalt work in tandem to destroy what it means to be an engaged and informed citizenry. Now, here to talk more on this, the New School is very proud to welcome Mr. Chris Hedges. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. And I want to first salute all those students at the New School who were not asleep in standing up to their president, and I hope that campaign's not over. Secondly, I want to remind anyone who hasn't heard or has heard about the event on December 12th, 11 o'clock in the morning, next Saturday, Lafayette Park, in front of the White House, anti-war protest demonstration, which I will be speaking at, Senator Mike Gravel will be speaking at, Dennis Kucinich will be speaking at, Cynthia McKinney will be speaking at, and as Nick read, and you can read that column on TruthDig today, I think that line has been crossed by Barack Obama, and it is time for all of us to step out of the mainstream, to give up on the Democratic Party, which has betrayed us, and in particular betrayed the working class, and fight for what is left of our anemic democracy. In celebrity culture, we destroy what we worship. The commercial exploitation of Michael Jackson's death was orchestrated by the corporate forces that rendered Jackson insane. Jackson, robbed of his childhood and surrounded by vultures that preyed on his fears and weaknesses, was so consumed by self-loathing, he carved his African-American face into a Caucasian death mask. He hid his apparent pedophilia behind a Peter Pan illusion of eternal childhood. He could not disentangle his public and his private self. He became a commodity, a product, one to be sold, used, and manipulated. He was infected by the moral nihilism and personal disintegration that is at the core of our corporate culture. And his fantasies of eternal youth, delusions of majesty, and desperate, disfiguring quests for physical transformation were an expression of our own yearning. He was a reflection of us in the extreme. His memorial service, a variety show with a coffin, had an average of 31.1 million television viewers. It was the final episode of the long-running Michael Jackson series. The stories that enthrall us are real-life stories, early fame, wild success, and then a long, bizarre, and macabre emotional train wreck. O.J. Simpson offered a tamer version of the same plot. So does Britney Spears and Tiger Woods. Jackson, by the end, was heavily in debt and had weathered a $22 million out-of-court settlement to Jordy Chandler, as well as 7 counts of child sexual abuse and 2 counts of administering an intoxicating agent in order to commit a felony. Jackson reflected back to us our own physical and psychological disintegration, especially with many Americans struggling with overwhelming debt, loss of status, and deep personal confusion. The lurid drama of Jackson's personal life meshed with the ongoing dramas in television, in movies, and the news. News reports on television are mini-dramas. They provide a star, a villain, a supporting cast, a good-looking host, and a dramatic, if often unexpected, ending. In Fahrenheit 451, Ray Bradbury's novel about a future dystopia, people spend most of the day watching giant television screens that show endless scenes of police chases and criminal apprehensions. Life, Bradbury understood, once it was packaged, scripted, given a narrative, and filmed, became the most compelling form of entertainment. And Jackson was a great show. He deserved a great finale. Those who created Jackson's public persona and turned him into a piece of property, first as a child and finally as a corpse encased in a $15,000 golden casket, are the agents, publicists, promoters, scriptwriters, advertisers, video technicians, recording executives, public announcers, and television news personalities who orchestrate the vast stage of celebrity for profit. They are the puppet masters. No one achieves celebrity status. No cultural illusion is swallowed as reality without these armies of cultural enablers and intermediaries. The producers at the Staples Center in Los Angeles made sure the 18,000 attendees and television audience, and even the BBC, devoted 3 hours to the tribute, watched a funeral that was turned into another maudlin form of uplifting popular entertainment. The memorial service for Jackson was a celebration of celebrity. There was the queasy sight of groups of children, including his own, singing over the coffin. Brooke Shields, fighting back tears, recalled how she and a 33-year-old Jackson, who always maintained that he was a straight male, broke into Elizabeth Taylor's room the night before her wedding because Michael was too excited to wait until morning to see the wedding gown. Shields and Jackson at Taylor's wedding then, quote, pretended to be the mother and father of Elizabeth Taylor. It sounds weird, Shields said, but we made it real. There were photo montages in which a shot of Michael Jackson shaking hands with Nelson Mandela was immediately followed by one of him with Kermit the Frog. Celebrity culture reduces all of the famous to the same level. Fame is its own denominator. And every anecdote told about Jackson seemed to confirm that when you spend your life as a celebrity, you have no idea who you are. And yet we measure our lives by these celebrities. We seek to be like them. We emulate their look and behavior. We escape the messiness of real life through the fantasy of their stardom. We too long to attract admiring audiences for our grand, ongoing life movie. We try to see ourselves moving through our life as a camera would see us, mindful of how we hold ourselves, how we dress, what we say. We invent movies that play inside our heads with us as stars. We wonder how an audience would react. Celebrity culture has taught us, almost unconsciously, to generate interior, personal screenplays. We have learned ways of speaking and thinking that grossly disfigure the way we relate to the world and those around us. Neil Gabler, who has written wisely about this, argues that celebrity culture is not a convergence of consumer culture and religion, so much as a hostile takeover of religion by consumer culture. Jackson desperately feared growing old. He believed he could manipulate race and gender. He transformed himself through surgery and perhaps female hormones, from a brown-skinned African-American male to a chalk-faced, androgynous figure with no clear sexual identity. And while he pushed these boundaries to the extreme, he only did what many Americans do. There were 12 million cosmetic plastic surgery procedures performed last year in the United States. They were performed because in America, most human beings, rich and poor, famous and obscure, have been conditioned to view themselves as marketable commodities. They are objects, like consumer products. They have no intrinsic value. They must look fabulous and live on fabulous sets. They must remain young. They must achieve notoriety and money, or the illusion of it, to be a success, and it does not matter how they get there. Celebrity culture licenses a dark voyeurism into other people's humiliation, pain, weakness, and betrayal. Education, building community, honesty, transparency, and sharing are qualities that will see you ridiculed and voted off any reality show. Fellow competitors for prize money and a chance for fleeting fame elect to disappear the unwanted. In the final credits of the reality show, America's Next Top Model, a picture of the woman expelled during the episode vanishes from the group portrait on the screen. Those cast aside become, at least to the television audience, non-persons. Celebrities that can no longer generate publicity, good or bad, vanish. Life, these shows teach, is a brutal world of unadulterated competition and a constant quest for notoriety and attention.